Good afternoon. As you will recall, I last updated you on the status of garbage collection on April 17th. Since that time, I am pleased to report an ever-increasing acceptance of the new once-a-week garbage collection. So let me again thank the people of Bermuda who have generally transitioned smoothly to the change in schedule. I'm also pleased to report that the waste management staff are adequately coping with the new schedule, even with a limited number of vehicles. With the vehicles that are in service daily, on average 8 trucks, we are able to cope with the current staffing levels, and as such, we will not be hiring new staff at this time. We are still experiencing some challenges with truck maintenance, as the number of trucks in the fleet are still well below the optimum. You will recall that a team traveled to the UK in April to inspect and test the new trucks we were looking to purchase. 5 trucks have now been ordered and are expected to arrive on island in November. I must caution, though, that even with the purchase of these 5 new trucks, we will still not be at a full complement of vehicles, as many of the trucks currently in the fleet have surpassed their life expectancy. Over the course of the once-a-week collection period, I can report that we have seen a leveling off in the amount of household waste collected when compared to last year's twice-a-week figures. You will readily see from the attached chart virtually the same amount of household waste is being collected this year versus last. Concurrently, we have seen a steady increase in those using the public drop-off since the extension of operating hours on Saturdays. I've asked the plant manager to explore with the operator the feasibility of further extending the hours to make it even more convenient to members of the public desirous of utilizing this facility. One of the significant benefits of this new scheduling is the reliability factor and consistent collection of waste on the day's schedule. Likewise, the overtime expenses for waste collection to date have almost exclusively been a result of collection following public holidays, and is significantly less than the $1 million budgeted annually. And of course, to repeat, we have not just saved money as a result of this new scheduling. There have been savings in fuel, wear and tear on vehicles, illnesses, and injuries. Not surprisingly, staff morale has improved as well, as these workers who take great pride in their work are pleased that they can actually deliver on what has been promised. They have been actively engaged in assessing the progress over the period, with recommendations covering the entire operation, but most notably in the challenges with the pickup zones. Of course, as we approach the summer months, we increase the amount of garbage we produce, with a peak over the Cut Match weekend. Collection for those 2 days will occur on Saturday, August 4th. Since the coverage areas are reduced, we anticipate being able to comfortably manage collection on that day. I will be announcing shortly the plan for the reintroduction of bulk waste pickup in some form to assist the community. So with that background and all the positive outcomes noted above, the reality is we cannot contemplate a return to twice-a-week collection anytime soon, with the limited vehicles available. So once-a-week garbage collection will continue at least until the end of the year. Long before we reach that point, however, we will have concluded all the background necessary to make a firm recommendation to Cabinet on the way forward, to be followed shortly thereafter with a public announcement. Immediately, though, there will be some minor adjustments to the collection schedule for some areas to minimize the need for overtime work in those zones. In short, they are: Monday collection, the easternmost boundary will move from Church Road to Waterlot on Middle Road to Sinky Bay on South Shore Road. Tuesday collection from Cobbs Hill to Chapel Road, S Hill, and Southcote Road. Wednesday from Trimmingham Hill to T Street, and Thursday from T Street to Devil's Hill. The Friday collection zone remains the same. Those adjustments will become effective after the cut match holiday on August 6th. A map of the new boundaries will be published along with an extensive media campaign to advise of those changes. Additionally, in response to several requests from members of the public to extend the opening hours of the public drop-off on Sundays, we have requested the adjustment from the service provider that will become effective on August the 6th as well. I wish to assure the public that we will continue to assess the situation, take the necessary steps to address any unforeseen challenges, and address the management of our waste going forward. All of us, however, can help in that regard by reducing the amount of waste we generate, recycle, and compost food waste. Let me end where I began by thanking the public for adapting to this new collection schedule and those workers in waste management who do an outstanding job in collecting our waste under some of the most trying circumstances. I encourage the members of the public to give a thought and even express thanks to those workers who so efficiently collect our garbage every week. Thank you.
Minister. We'd now like to open up the questions. Paul, do you want to...
Good afternoon, Minister. In April, you announced that the, once-a-week collection, which was first announced in February, would be extended. So we've basically been on this now, once-a-week collection, for about 4 months. I'm wondering, do you have a figure as to how much money has been saved within that 4-month period?
I saw the figures yesterday. They're in. We essentially budget $1 million for overtime annually. We are 4 months. Well, no, it was 3 months into the financial year. We've spent about $25,000
in 3 months on
in 3 months on overtime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any downside, in your opinion, to the once-a-week collection? I mean, other than blowback, perhaps a little bit?
The downside is that we still have some challenges with vehicles. As an example, if in some of the neighborhoods where they have bins, like in condominium associations, if those trucks go down, then we are faced with a real challenge. We have 4 of those in the fleet. If all 4 are down in a day, then that garbage cannot be collected in the normal course of events. What we've said to them is that we have to have a solution, that we cannot just leave the garbage for a whole week. And part of the challenge, though, is that and it's the most bizarre thing to me, is that people are reluctant to get on the phone and call Marsh Folly and say our garbage hasn't been collected, so that at least they raise the flag. Essentially what they do, and it's a rather peculiar and bizarre route, they'll wait till they get home and they'll email their MP, who then will take a day to then email me, and then so several days have gone past, and so when they email me, they say, the garbage hasn't been collected. They give me photographs, and I'm saying, okay, did anybody call Marsh Folly? Because that's what I'm going to do, but I'm doing it 4 days later. And so what I'm hoping members of the public will do is that the experience has been that a number of people have said to me that they put their garbage out at the normal time, which is after 7:30, and they find that it's still there when they come home. And I'm saying that's because they've been and gone. You need to check your neighbors, because they are, as a result of the reduced area that they have to cover each day, we are sending essentially all of the trucks that we have in service to the fringes of that zone and collecting the garbage a lot earlier than we have traditionally in the past.
So you've announced today then that once-a-week collection will continue at least until the end of the year. It certainly seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it certainly seems like all indications are pointing to once-a-week collection will become the norm. That is where I personally am leaning, but I personally don't make the decision on my own. But certainly what we will do if we get to that point, I am required to get my cabinet colleagues in particular, and our entire caucus to buy into this, because they're going to be the ones basically selling it to folk.
And even though there's a significant financial savings, I think that we are looking at how we can spend some of that money assisting folk to adjust to the once-a-week garbage collection. And in that regard, I can say that, we looked at perhaps long before the end of the year, having a pilot program in some of the neighborhoods where we've had the greatest challenges, where we provide them with bins, where they're able to store the garbage on their own properties, and see how that works in terms of us being able to manage in some of the key challenging areas. But I can say that in the main, across the country actually, because I live in the West, and so you monitor it on the way into work and on the way home, people have actually switched on to the fact that it is once-a-week garbage collection. And I've noticed recently in some of the areas where the message did not seem to be getting through, that people have made up their own signs, saying garbage is on Tuesdays only. And not only have they made up their own signs, but the neighbors have recognized and read it and said, okay, I won't put my garbage out on Wednesday, where it's going to sit there for 6 days.
Final question for you. You mentioned that equipment continues to be an ongoing issue.
Yes.
You said average of 8 trucks
Yeah.
at a time. Obviously, drawing some parallels, the bus cancellations that happened on holiday Monday, obviously not your department, but an example of a unionized workforce like yours who have been dealing with ongoing problems with equipment. I'm wondering what you thought of that whole lack of service on the holiday Monday, and how you're going to work or to try and prevent a similar kind of job action from happening with regards to garbage.
Well, I certainly can't speak about buses because I'm not intimately involved in the challenges there, and I got enough on my plate to stay in my lane. But insofar as waste management is concerned, I have spent a significant amount of my own personal time at Marsh Folly. So I share and exchange directly with the workers on the ground. And so I think by doing that, they have direct access, even though I spend much more time meeting with their supervisory staff. But I get it live and direct from them. And I can tell you that one of the most gratifying stories was when I first went to Marsh Folly, when we first started this. One of the drivers used some fairly colorful language to tell me that this was going to be a disaster. And the once-a-week garbage collection was going to be a disaster. And I thought, well, I like people who are direct. And I said, well, but we are going to try. And about 2 weeks in, I ran into him in Fishing Things. And he said, you're nothing short of brilliant. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, this once-a-week garbage collection is working like a charm. And so what that said to me was that not only was he prepared to voice his opinion that it was going to be a disaster from his perspective at the outset, he did agree that we were going to try it, and having seen it work, and being able to see the significant reduction in criticism from the general public that the garbage had not been collected, he was quite prepared to say that, I got this one wrong, and was quite prepared to offer up that, it was in fact working. And so I think that that's the approach that we've taken with the workers. They have participated in this. The change in zones have come directly from them, input from them. And what it allows us to do is to be able to more accurately predict how they're going to be able to manage their day Monday through Fridays. And so we're not having this sort of moving target of when they actually finish. And that then has a knock-on effect in terms of our ability to do maintenance on the vehicles. And what we've recently implemented is we've tried to, with the bin trucks, because there are more moving parts on that than the normal garbage trucks, is to have the discussions with the quarry about deliberately taking them out of service on a rotational basis and say 1 or 2 out of service, and spending the time doing proper maintenance on them as opposed to just correcting what is reported that is wrong, so that we can have a greater level of reliability of these trucks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the challenge we're facing right now is even with 8 trucks in service on average, they still are running excessively longer routes and times and activity than you would with a normal vehicle, and so you're going to be subjected to more breakdowns than you would have in the normal course of events.
Minister, you have been in this position almost a year now.
Yes.
Have you found in your ministry other major issues that you're challenged with?
Lots. I've found that you will know that I've done this job before, and a decade ago, and there's good and bad in everything, I think. In this case, I think that the challenges have been different. I won't necessarily say they've been more difficult, but there's a different set of challenges in the sense that you have. And I don't want to be overly critical of the former administration. I don't want to be critical of them at all. I mean, we earned this, and so it's our responsibility. But I think that some of the challenges that we're facing are legacy challenges in the sense that people don't believe that things are going to be different. And so you've got to spend a lot of time not just talking but demonstrating that we are making a different effort in order to be able to provide people with the tools in order to be able to do their job better. I'll tell you that this week, for me, one of the things that really lifted my spirits in terms of, and the only thing that really does that is actual forward movement and progress. And you'll know that we are on the threshold, days away now from going live with the Land Title Registration Office. And we have recently recruited 4 land title officers, 1 from the UK and 3 from Jamaica, in fact. And Monday I'd indicated to the registrar that, as the minister, I wanted to be able to share with, first of all, to thank them for agreeing to come and help us, because it was at short notice, particularly the Jamaicans, in the sense that we recruited them via Skype. And Jamaica, as most people will know, is my second favorite place on the planet. They actually have the gold standard for land title registration in the Caribbean. And I knew that in recruiting from there that they would pick the best that they have. And so I went to the office on Monday just to express to them, first of all, thanks for coming to help us, and second, to give them an insight into how long this journey has been and how critical their role is in making this a success for the average Bermudian. And so when I arrived at the office, there was a gentleman who was sitting in the lobby conversing with a senior and a younger relative. And whilst I was waiting for the registrar, I overheard what he was saying, and he was laboriously going through, even before the office opened, explaining to the senior, this is how the process works, and this is how reliable it is, and this is what we've done in order to get to this point. And that is precisely what the approach that we want to take in launching the office, because you will know, as everybody does, nobody gives up their deeds. And part of that is we've changed the language. I said you cannot say to any Bermudian, and this transcends all the barriers, the wealthy to the poor, to the black, to the white, to the everybody, ain't nobody giving up their deeds. I said, you cannot say to them that you must surrender your deeds to the office. I said, because that ain't happening. You will never see them again if you use that type of language. What we have to do is to explain to folk that it's going to go on the register. You'll be able to keep your deeds, but the definitive title will be on the register, and so electronically. But what has also been encouraging is that obviously the younger generation are quite used to this, and so they have been helping their parents and their grandparents, saying, it's going to be all right. It ain't going to vanish, and there isn't going to be a threat of you losing it. And part of the other benefit of establishing confidence and focus that they've spent the decade that we're doing the office not necessarily just spinning their wheels, but they've put the entire government estate on the register. And so all of the kinks that you might expect with a new system have been ironed out with the government estate. And so when people start putting their own personal property on there won't be any of those challenges. And so from that point of view, it boosted my spirits tremendously because, we have people now in place who understand precisely what is required in the sense that, you can't be testy. You can't be afraid to repeat yourself. You can't be afraid to be, holding. The only regret I have at the moment, it's one that we're working to resolve, is that the space that they're in is not entirely how I envisaged it to be, and as comfortable as we want it to be. And so we're working on doing that. But we decided that we would go with the difficulty with the space as opposed to moving them into new space and launching on the 2nd of July and having to have the staff deal with both of those challenges.
If we just circle back, I'm sorry, any more questions as it relates to today's press briefing regarding waste management?
Any updates on the recycling initiatives that you mentioned previously?
The short answer is yes. We had a meeting this week with Vanessa Flood, who is our Education and Enforcement Officer, and we are making some progress in terms of the direction in which we want to go in terms of recycling. I still am very much on the page of encouraging people to recycle as opposed to making it mandatory. And I think we're having some progress in that regard. I think once a week garbage collection has helped in that regard because you can reduce the amount of waste that you generate significantly if you take cans and bottles out of the equation. I do think, though, that part of the education that we have got to convey to Bermudians is that I'm often asked why we don't recycle plastic. And I mean, we're headed in an entirely different direction that is going to warrant significant explanation to the Bermudian public because they're going to go berserk when they find out when they get an idea of where it is that we're headed. In Bermuda's case, we're at Tynes Bay Waste to Energy Facility. That's what it is, not waste treatment. It's waste to energy because we actually generate a significant amount of revenue for the government of Bermuda as a result of this facility and the power that is generated. And for us, because we have an incinerator, plastic actually serves as a fuel. And we are able to generate significant amounts of electricity mixing plastic with the other waste that we generate and burning it in the incinerator. Now, I know they're going to say that it's going into the atmosphere, but I can also say that we're the gold standard in terms of environmental protection and various other measures that we've taken in order to be able to prevent that escaping into the atmosphere. And there is the potential, I think, we're certainly exploring it, for us to actually import plastic to burn to generate more electricity. Because those people who follow this will know that China, who used to take the world's waste, have decided they're not going to do that anymore. They've got 2 billion people. I guess they can generate enough of their own. And in our own efforts to deal with not only recycling and exporting it, we've just entered into a contract with a service provider out of New Jersey who is also handling asbestos, and so we have been exploring exporting asbestos on a regular basis in the last 4 months or so. They also handle our recycling waste, and so we are having some discussions with them about the potential for us generating some revenue if we take other people's plastic.
Any further questions? No? Lastly?
A question on something slightly different.
Is this regarding the bridges?
It's not regarding the bridges.
Okay.
Then is there any update on the maintenance yard project at Town of Gardens?
It has been cancelled.
All right.
It was cancelled last August. You may recall that there was a court case prior to us coming into government. in the sense that people objected to it, and so there was a requirement to make a decision sometime in August last year. And when the date came, I decided that we would not proceed with building that facility, and not because of any court case, but I kind of came to this job with the belief that we have to look at Bermuda as what it is. We are 21 square miles, and we cannot have separate entities for every aspect of government. And so when I first came, I went to the quarry and I asked them, I said, are you mechanics capable of fixing a Parks truck if it has a blue label on the outside of it? And he said, oh yes, Minister. I said, fine, and that's precisely what we're going to do. And that we should have, and we're headed in that direction, not just in relation to maintenance, but just generally across the board. The approach of this ministry is looking at how we can reduce the expenses that we expand as a ministry, and the duplication of effort in terms of the quangos that fall under the ministry and the departments that fall under the ministry that do similar works, how we can combine and retool and reuse so that we're not duplicating efforts.
And finally, any thoughts on the wall at Somerset Kirkland Eagles? I know you remember.
It's being built, and so I think the matter's closed.